Hello. In this lecture, we are going to look at the issue of agreeing and disagreeing, asking for and giving opinion. Now remember, there are cultural differences. In Asian cultures, we are expected to agree with people who are older than us, who are senior than us, or in India, in China, whenever an elder person or a senior person makes a suggestion, the etiquette is that you don't disagree with them. You bend rules, but you're not supposed to express your disagreement openly. It will be seen as a form of insubordination. Whereas in Western cultures, it's perfectly all right for you. In fact, you're not expected to keep your opinions to yourself, and if you don't agree with something or agree with something, you are supposed to indicate, express your opinion openly. What is important is not keeping silent, but using the right form to agree or disagree, so that even if you disagree with someone, it doesn't come across as impolite. So whether you are at work or at the university with colleagues or friends, at business meetings or discussion with your professor, you sometimes need to disagree with them. Even in the classroom, in my classroom for instance, I find that students always nod, and I say, no, my word is not God's word, please disagree. And gradually I find very young students, 18-year-old students, coming forward with their views, and they say, no, I don't think your explanation is correct. I beg to disagree with you. So that's perfectly all right in the Western culture. It's important to share your opinion and express your ideas, but how do you do it in English? That's important. To disagree politely with someone changes from culture to culture, as I said, situation to situation and person to person. In English, we have formal and informal expressions we can use to disagree. So, rules for disagreeing. English is a polite language. Even when you think someone is wrong about something, it's rude to contradict that person. This means that you have to do so indirectly. You also have to be careful to notice that when an English person wants to disagree, since you might think he's just discussing the subject, or even that he's agreeing with you. So, you have to do it very politely. Let's look at some of the problems. So, sooner or later you will be in a situation where you have the urge to agree or disagree with something that's being said in English. Offering an opinion can be difficult when it's not your first language. You may know exactly what you want to say in your native language, native tongue, but you don't know how to express your views in English. You may also worry that your words will not come out properly, or that you might hurt someone's feelings. So, in Hindi for instance, we say ha, bilkul theek, bilkul, beshak. We use terms like that. We know the exact word we need to use, bilkul nahi, bilkul, to express our agreement or disagreement, but perhaps we are not familiar with how to do it in English. So, let's look at how you need to do it. It's easier to sit back and say nothing at all, but you will become very bored and frustrated if all you do is nod your head or shake your head no, especially if you have some strong opinion about something. So, the best thing for you is to learn and practice some of the common expressions that are used in discussions and debates. For example, there is a difference between agreeing strongly or only slightly. So, let's look at some examples on how to agree and disagree politely. We will show you how to agree politely and how to disagree politely, and how to do it rudely if you want to do it. It also shows how to avoid agreeing and disagreeing. Sometimes you will have to agree or disagree with an opinion. For example, what a beautiful baby. I'm afraid not many people will disagree, because we all love babies and we say we don't find any baby ugly, but there are other situations where you might not agree. So, let's have a young man expressing his opinion about a beautiful film star and have him being refuted by his friend.
Hey, Alia Bhatt is so cute.
Yeah, you might find her cute, but then sense of humor and intelligence level does matter, and I think she's very dumb in that. I mean, we've seen her performances on Coffee with Karan, and I think she's very dumb.
Agreeing strongly and disagreeing strongly, and we're going to watch some role plays on the current the brouhaha about the ban on having foreign artists and players coming to our country.
So, what is all about the foreign, like ban on the foreign artists? What do you guys think?
I think that of course there should be ban. I mean, I've seen the jawans of our country have been fighting over the borders over there, and you know, I've seen closely my father's friend fighting, and I've seen them dying for the country, and here are we promoting the artists of foreign countries, and that's ridiculous. I mean,
I totally sympathize with you, Xenia, but don't you think we should separate war and talent?
You need to use certain expressions when you want to agree strongly, when you need to agree mildly, or you want to stay neutral. So try using some of these next time you agree with someone. You could use any of these expressions when you are agreeing strongly, agreeing mildly, or staying neutral. Similarly, with disagreeing mildly, disagreeing strongly, you could use any of these phrases like the people in the role play did. And now we'll have another role play where you can you'll watch people agreeing and disagreeing in a formal meeting.
Hey, hi Xenia.
hello, Angad. Okay, you'd asked for this media person.
Yeah, I did.
So here she is, Rajeshri.
Oh, hi.
Hi.
Okay, what you can do is like both of you just go through it.
Okay.
I made some plans.
Okay.
I'm afraid I might not be able to help you with this because our company does not do paid promotions. And also, will the Calcutta people be receptive enough towards such a kind of an event?
Yeah, if you have that doubt, that's fine. But I think this absolutely goes with the outline of the event that we had made earlier.
You can disagree indirectly with people, but when you disagree indirectly with people, you have to give the reasons, like she did in this situation when she said, will the Calcutta people take it? So whenever you disagree with someone, you can people always give you the reasons why they disagree. So let's look at some of these examples. When you say that film should be banned, it's one of the most popular films of the year. Many people think it's a classic. It's not upset many people. So, and to make their disagreement less forceful, English people will use the words well, actually, yes, but at the start of their sentence. They might also apologize for disagreeing. So you say, I'm sorry, like she said, I sympathize with you. If you remember the role play, she said, I sympathize with you. So you apologize for disagreeing, but I don't think so. Or you say, yes, well, actually, it's not that bad, as a matter of fact. So if somebody uses his or her disagreement by using the words with the greatest respect or with all due respect, he is about to say something disrespectful. Remember that. Now, let's look at some informal expressions of disagreement, and these are very, very informal. You can use them only when you are with friends. You can't use them with everybody. You can use them with friends. So let's have some examples of informal phrases.
Hey Xenia, my friend is coming for dinner tonight.
You gotta be joking.
Can we go out for a party?
You can't be serious, Angad.
He's going to stay here overnight.
No way.
Using irony to express disagreement.
Hey, can you please be showstopper for me tomorrow, please?
Are you pulling my leg?
No, she's ill.
Are you going to be kidding, Angad? I mean, you can't be serious.
Yeah, I am serious.
I'm now going to run you through some formal and professional expressions for disagreement. We will not have role plays because we will follow this up on the session on meetings where you would be using them. The most polite way to disagree with someone is to use one of these strategies when introducing your disagreement. Show that you understand the other person's opinion, that is important. Apologize before introducing your disagreement. Pretend to be in the middle or unsure about your position. Now, using these strategies help to soften the disagreement and argument more effective. So, we will practice these phrases when we come to meetings in actual situations. Agreeing, this is one way of saying different expressions for agreeing, different expressions for disagreeing. Simple, now there can be different kinds of disagreements. There can be a simple disagreement or refusal, or there can be a very strong disagreement where you say I completely disagree with you. There could be a third way of disagreeing diplomatically, which we watched actually when we saw the role plays, through doubt. When you say I wonder whether that's the case, I'm not so sure about that. So, you can also disagree diplomatically. Accepting, declining, expressing acceptance. This is another way of before you disagree, you accept the other person's point of view. You say I accept your point, sorry I can't accept this. So, begin by saying great idea, I accept your point, and then you can disagree. Partially agree. So, that is the third situation, agreeing, disagreeing, partially agreeing, where you say I agree up to a point, but I see your point, but that is partly true, but. Okay. So, the but phrases, we have a whole lot of but phrases here, where you counter politely through partial agreement followed by antithesis, that may be so but, that may be true but, and so on. And whenever you disagree, you can always offer an alternative or a suggestion. To effectively argue for your position or opinion, it is best to finish your disagreement by offering an alternative or a suggestion. So, this is a solution focused argument and can also soften the disagreement. So, you can say instead we could do this, my suggestion would be. So, suggestions and disagreements can come together. Now, opinions are often stated as facts. Whenever someone gives an opinion, you can agree with them, you can disagree with them, ask for more information, or show that you do not want to discuss the matter. For example, that film is really good, you can say yes, I really enjoyed it. You can disagree, I can't say it is my favorite, and you can disagree rudely, you say what a lot of rubbish, I do not watch films, you do not want to discuss it. Notice that asking for more information is often a polite way of disagreeing. So, if someone says that film is really good, you say do you think so? What do you like about it? So, that is one way of disagreeing. Question tags at the end of a sentence demand a response. Therefore, they are useful in asking for agreement or in starting a discussion about an opinion. So, you say should we end the lecture today? Should we? That road is really dangerous, isn't it? So, whenever we use a question tag, we are seeking agreement. Don't you think this is a good idea? Don't you? So, whenever we use question tags, we know we are being asked to agree or disagree. We will quickly look at, I have placed them together. Sorry, the table has gone awry. So, you can use these expressions to express your opinion. We will now move on to how to give advice and how to ask for advice. Asking for and giving advice. How many times you have asked for advice or given advice? Very often you have your parents giving you advice, uncalled for advice. Now, there is a way of giving advice and there's a way for seeking advice. We all know how to do it instinctively in our mother tongue. For instance, in Hindi you can say, ab kya? All you say is, what do we do now? And that's an opening for the other person to suggest something. Or you say now, ab, hun in Punjabi. But in English, there are very clear ways of asking for advice and giving advice. Let's look at some of these. Asking for advice. What do you think I should do? What should I do? What should you do? What would you suggest? Can you give me some advice? So, again we are moving from the most informal to the most formal. Can you give me some advice? What do you think I should do? What do you suggest? What would you do in this situation? What do you advise me to do? We don't always use the word advice, but we can ask people what we should do. So, I've got a bad toothache. What do you suggest? What do you advise me to do? What should I do? What ought I to do? What's your advice? If you were me, what would you do? Similarly, on giving advice. Now, giving advice is more tricky than asking for advice because people don't always like taking advice from you. So, whenever you're giving advice, you have to be tentative so that the other person doesn't take offense or doesn't think that you are trying to impose your views on them. You've got to be very tentative. Now, let's look at the different ways in which you can give advice, and let's see 5 different ways, 5 simple ways to give advice in English. The first is to use the modal verb should, and the second is to make it into a question. So, should, why don't you, how about? Let's practice some of these.
Senior, you are sniffing again. You should go to the doctor.
Angad, right now I'm rushing for a meeting. Just tell me, is this dress okay?
Yeah, it's okay. How about like if you wear your glasses on, like it will look much professional?
Okay.
You could either make it into a question such as why don't you, or you could put yourself in the other person's position. If someone is asking you for advice, sometimes it's useful to imagine yourself being in that person's position.
Good morning, Mr. Singh.
Good morning.
Good morning, Xenia.
Good morning.
I was thinking of featuring your event in the page 3 section of our newspaper. What would you advise, Mr. Singh?
Why don't you think it on air? Like,
Okay, and Xenia, what is your take on this?
I think if I were you, then I would have taken this on a very different level. I would rather publicize it during the Spring Fest, wherein you have students from across the country, and that will be like publicity on a very larger level.
Okay.
Another way you could do it is by making a suggestion.
Hi ma'am.
Hi Angad.
I was just passing by, so I thought like I can just ask for any work. Is there any work for me?
There would be a lot of work, Angad,
Okay.
but you need to get back into shape.
Okay.
It's high time you started going to the gym again. Also advise in a stronger way.
But I really need a campaign.
Then you'd better get into shape. Come back after 2 weeks and I'll have an assignment for you.
Okay.
So as we saw, there are so many different ways of giving advice, but depending on the phrase you use, the exact phrase you use, it changes the meaning. So suppose you come to me for advice on something. As we saw, there are so many different ways of asking for advice and giving advice, but it makes a lot of difference the way you give advice, the exact phrase you use to give advice. Suppose you came to me for my advice.
Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon, Xenia.
Ma'am, I just wanted to talk to you something about
Yeah, sure.
besides studies. I was just thinking of continuing my PhD here as a regular student until I give my registration seminar.
I think it's a great idea, but I think you ought to tell your parents.
Okay, ma'am.
You could always tell your parents.
Okay, ma'am.
Have you thought of telling your parents, Zenia? In your position, I would tell your parents. You should perhaps tell your parents. Maybe a good idea to tell your parents. Maybe you can tell your parents. So I can say it in so many different ways. I think you should tell your parents. The focus changes about, I'm not so sure about telling your parents. So you shouldn't, I think you shouldn't tell your parents. So suppose she asked me about giving her a registration seminar and I'm against it. So I say, I think you shouldn't tell your parents. Do you think it's a good idea to tell your parents because they're preparing, they're ready for something else? Are you sure it's a good idea to tell your parents? I don't think it's a good idea to tell your parents. So you can use these variations. We saw a lot of structures as to how to give advice, using ought, should, using questions, putting yourself in somebody else's position, and we have a whole lot of phrases here for you to practice. You can also decline to give advice. You say, I don't know what to advise, I'm afraid. I wish I could suggest something, but I can't. I wish I could help. I'm afraid I can't help you. Giving advice. So please try some of these structures along with the combinations they come with. And advice and opinions often go together. We ask people for advice, but we also seek people's opinions on something. So we would ask, what do you think? What's your opinion? What are your ideas? Asking for opinion, how do you feel about it? Do you think, what do you think about it? This is the way you ask for opinion. And how do you give opinion? So you can, usually when we give opinions, it's like it appears like a fact. But if you want to make it more tentative, you can say this is my point of view. So you always say in my experience. To make it sound less like a fact and make it like an opinion, you say, as far as I am concerned, speaking for myself, in my opinion, personally I think I'd say that, I suggest that, I like to point out that, I believe that, what I mean is. But you could also have a general point of view. We say, it's thought that, some people say that, it's considered that, it's generally accepted that. So we will see, we will try to look at some role plays on how to give opinions.
Zenia, I was planning to take up this course on research methodology. What is your opinion on this?
Rajeshri, I had earlier taken this course, but I mean, I personally thought that, this, as a student of literature, this is not of much use to you. Okay. So I think you should have a second thought upon that before taking up the course.
Okay.
We have looked at giving opinions, asking for opinions. An informal conversation, giving advice is always used, suggested through modals. You ought to, should, could, if I were you. In informal conversations, we say, I feel that, in my opinion. So sometimes we say, nowadays everybody starts using trust me. People use this term very often, trust me, to show both negative and positive opinions, emotions. You say, I know so, or to know is better than saying to think. Or nowadays when we know someone well, we say, trust me, what I'm saying is fine. So we looked at, in the module we've just completed, we looked at a whole lot of structures. We looked at a whole lot of phrases for making conversations. Yes, I know that all of you can converse very fluently in your own language, but in English, when you translate from your languages and use them in colloquial or your conversational English, it sounds very odd. So I've tried to put you through some structures, some standard structures. You can always vary them. There's no hard and fast rule, but I've tried to show you how each structure or how each phrase, what kind of feeling or what kind of attitude it conveys. We will practice. I hope that when we move on to the next more advanced activities, you would be able to use these structures in actual situations, whether it's an interview, whether it's an appraisal, a meeting or a presentation. I would like you to use each of these structures. Due to time constraints, we haven't been able to go through the entire gamut of phrases we use in English conversations, but we try to supplement the lectures by giving you an entire range of activities which will cover additional structures. The ones we were not able to cover in the lectures, we will give you role plays, we will give you activities and pen and paper exercises related to more conversational structures. Thank you.